Hello there, D here, and welcome to our continuing reviews of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Really excited, got a great show with you guys today. Joining us, of course, some fabulous guests. Up top here, we've got from Alyssa Jean's Reviews, Alyssa Jean.
Hello, Darren. It's really good to be here talking about Obi-Wan. Really excited to discuss it with you all tonight.
Excellent. And of course, joining us right down below here, our very own Agent Corrie Shoemaker.
Hey, I'm also thrilled to be here and so happy we have an Obi-Wan show. Finally. Oh, there's so much to dig into.
Yeah, and I think we've got a really fun episode tonight. Got a lot of stuff to do to go in, so I want to get to it as quickly as possible. Really quick, I do want to say hello to the chat. Silva Surfa, always man, a #1 fan. Really, Silva, joining us live. Silva, I understand you've had a really rough week. I'm really sorry to hear that. Thank you so much for taking some time and spending it with us, and hopefully we can nerd you out a little bit and at least feel some good stuff inside there. So thank you so much for joining me. Everyone joining us in the archives, really appreciate you being here as well. And before we get into things, I do want to take one quick little moment to address some of the social issues that have been surrounding the Star Wars premiere, specifically the stuff around Moses Ingram. And look, we're nerds. We love everyone here. One thing we don't like is racism, sexism, any type of those isms doesn't work. So just look, I think Moses personally is doing a great job. If you have conflicts with the character, that's one thing, but this isn't anything about the actor herself, and I think we just need to remember that. This is Star Wars. This is escapism. Let's all have a good time. All right, so let's get into the episode as it is. Since you guys are our guests, we're going to start off with you. Alyssa, why don't you let me know what's your general thoughts about this episode? What did you think of this one? And I mean, you can even talk about what you thought coming in from last week as well. And then how did this deliver what you were hoping for?
Yeah. Well, I'm really enjoying this series so far. Halfway through it. So unfortunately, I watched some YouTube videos a few months ago that kind of outlined the plot points of the first 2 episodes. So I was spoiled on the Leia thing, which was really disappointing because like everybody else was like, "Oh, Leia," and I was like, "Yeah, unfortunately, I knew about that a couple months ago, and I wish I didn't." But so this was the first episode where like I knew nothing. Well, I knew that Darth Vader was going to be in the show. We all knew that somewhere. Right. I didn't know necessarily that what was going to happen in this episode was going to happen. But so I came in it fresh, and what I've particularly enjoyed about this episode and what I've enjoyed about the series so far is the interactions between Ewan McGregor and whatever the girl's name who's playing Leia. She is. I have been thinking that I wish they got half as good of a child actor to play Anakin in The Phantom Menace, because that kid was terrible. And I'm loving
Jake Lloyd,
this.
Yes.
Yeah, and the chemistry between these two is fantastic. And we may get into this a little bit more, but I love that they're connecting more to the relationship to her mom, because that's never been explored. There's never been any kind of exploration of Luke and Leia's connection to their mother. So I'm really enjoying all of that. Ewan McGregor, of course, is knocking it out of the park. This is making a lot of sense to me that Obi-Wan would be in this state of despair. And I think it's about the halfway point between episodes 3 and episode 4. So I think this is a very logical story arc for him. And I think they're doing a really good job so far. Now, there's definitely certain plot points that I think they're going to need to hit in order for it to be satisfying for me, but I think they will. And we'll get into that more a little bit later. And I think they will do it because I think they've done an excellent job so far. I have some nits to pick here and there, but overall, I'm really enjoying what I've been seeing so far.
Wonderful. Corey, what about yourself? I know you were really looking forward to this series coming out. How has it delivered for your expectations? And what did you think of tonight's episode, part 3?
Yes, the Obi-Wan Kenobi draw is gone. I now have all the Obi-Wan I need. It's great. I'm feeling so much better. No, I'm just loving the show. I guess, there's been a lot of negative comments online that I've seen, and a lot of videos just like ripping apart the show. I don't see that. I mean, yeah, there's areas that it can be improved. Yes, there's, obviously Leia could maybe take a couple of running and sprinting courses. you know, she's a kid. I mean, what are you expecting, right?
Fair.
And I'm just loving, as you were also saying, this connection between Obi-Wan and Leia. We sort of start to see a foundational, friendship growing that's going to echo later on in the films, A New Hope and whatnot. I love that we also get a little bit more backstory on Obi-Wan, because he's always been a bit of a mystery. And so we learn in this episode that, he remembers his family. He remembers bits of, his mother's shawl, his father's hands. He had a brother, or he thinks he had a brother. And I was like, oh my word, where's his brother? I want to have to meet the brother. I need another series about the brother. Obi-Wan and his brother team up. So I just like that we got those little sort of teases and information that we've always, as fans, wondered about, but there's never been that information there. And it wasn't a ton of information, which I like. I like it when it's just a little bit, and then you're allowed to use your imagination to figure out the rest. So yeah, that's what I've been liking. And Vader, oh my word. Oh my word. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, actually, just as a heads up to the audience, actually, Ewan McGregor does have a twin brother. He is in the Royal Air Force. His call sign is Obi-2.
Nice.
True story. Anyway, yeah, I completely agree with you guys in this one. I loved this episode. I mean, yes, there were a few parts, but overall, I really enjoyed this. And so many, look, I've got to say that this episode countered so many of my complaints that I had in the first couple of episodes. Obviously, Ewan McGregor is bringing it. Ewan McGregor brings it so much, he actually already brought it, put it down, went back and got some more. Okay. You're right. The emotion, the pain that he's going through, the desperate reaching out for Qui-Gon, the looking for answers, the paranoid, total lack of trust, belief and betrayal. I mean, this is really, we're getting into some real emotional meat, and I really think that they've handled it extremely well. I love Anakin haunting him, like out in the distance. Is that who he's seeing? The thoughts, the emotions. I mean, we already had the memories and nightmares, and now it's really coming to life. He brings so much to every scene, and really just heightens each and every one of those moments. Great. Leia was great. I completely agree. Yeah, I had some complaints with the running, but her acting and the character I enjoyed in this one. I'd be like, I'll deal with the running. She is definitely the right choice for this role. So I will admit my wrongness in there. I thought there was a great use of the volume of the effects, again, where they had some limitations last time, some stuff that I didn't think totally worked here. Loved it. The transitions from live action to interior was seamless. It was just really, everybody was dirty. They were messed up. The stormtroopers were all loved it. Everybody couldn't wait for Hayden Christensen to come back. That's awesome. I love that they got, of course, James Earl Jones, because that's Vader. If you're gonna bring him, you got to have James Earl Jones, and it really, again, just heightened everything. The Imperial stuff, we will get into some of the points and issues, and generally they have to deal with canon and trying to insert this really cleanly between episodes, but minor compared to really, especially second viewing on this. If you guys have problems with it and to first see it, and I understand that sometimes, watch it again. I think most of those will all drift away for you, and you'll really enjoy that. So yeah, let's get into anything. We are on our mining colony. Dropped off. Well, I guess we're on a ship heading towards the mining colony. We get some great little interactions again with Leia and Ben, Obi-Wan, who is himself dealing with the release that we had last week of that Anakin is alive and reaching out for Qui-Gon. So how did you guys like this sort of setup for the episode and really that transition of him having these moments and then having to venture off onto another planet to look for maybe some help? Maybe. Corey, let's start off with you.
Yeah, I mean, I like that we get to see that being a Jedi isn't easy. Because I think that in, the prequels, they were all at the height of their game. They were like, they were training for the Olympics, and it was like the last race for the Olympics, and they're all in their peak form. And now we get to see Obi-Wan really struggling. And I think I love that about his character, that no matter what they throw at him, eventually he comes out the other end with a positive look, like a positive perspective, as opposed to with Anakin, he's just pulled into the dark side. And so I always love that about Obi-Wan's character, no matter what he goes through. I mean, he loses Qui-Gon Jinn, and he's able to keep going. And so it's nice to do a study of his character where he's at a very low point and he feels like he's lost everything. And we see that he's trying to reach out for Qui-Gon, and it's like nothing. That is not easy. And he's been doing this for a while, and he's still not getting through. And so, I don't know, for me, I feel very vindicated in a way of like, yes, that's how life is like for me too sometimes. And I just love that they don't present him as, this ideal. Like, he does have PTSD. He does have nightmares. He is struggling with things. And that's even hit home even more when we meet, is it Tala? And she says, I can't imagine Obi-Wan Kenobi doing anything wrong, right? So she still has this idea of, the Jedi are so, up there on a pedestal, and we get to kind of see the day-to-day human reality of being a human and being a Jedi.
Well, yeah, and of course the fall of, like you said, being in the, and he was right there at the top of it. He was Obi-Wan, general in the Clone Wars and all of this, and now he's like, I'm just Ben. Just don't talk to me. I'm just gonna hide in the corner here. So yeah, big difference there.
And he's lost so much, and so I'm just excited to see how they take him from there back to the balanced, hopeful, hello there, hello, my little friend,
To Alec Guinness, yeah. How are they going to turn him into Alec Guinness?
Yeah. So what did you think there, Alyssa, of this kind of opening bit and establishing this down part of Obi-Wan's position? Like I said, reaching out for help for someone he could tell for 10 years he hasn't heard any answer.
Yeah, and he's getting more and more desperate, I think, and I love it. I loved this opening sequence. And what I noticed was I think what distracts him from reaching out to Qui-Gon is that he starts thinking about Anakin and gets distracted by Anakin. And I absolutely thought it was brilliant how they interspliced the scenes of Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, like putting on all his gear and all that stuff. And I got the sense that they either were sensing each other, or at the very least they were each on each other's mind. Like Anakin's like, I want to get Obi-Wan. I got to get Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan is like just terrified about the fact that Anakin is not only still alive, but is turned into Darth Vader and is turned to the dark side. And he's terrified. So I think they're thinking of each other in those moments as they're going back and forth between the two of them. And I thought it was brilliant. I absolutely loved it as a setup for the episode, and especially for how it ends with a little conversation between the two. I thought this was a great way of laying the foundation for this episode.
Perfect. I love. There was a nice little line that when Leia was complaining about it getting faster, where Obi-Wan says, "It's a trade route, Leia. We're not in control of it." And all I could think of, well, tell that to episode 1, which opened up about arguments about trade routes and taxation. So there's a lot of little callbacks here and there. Some of it I don't know if it's intended, and some, I think as fans we're always going like, "Oh, did they refer to? Does that sound like?"
Yeah.
The negotiations were short.
The negotiations were short, Master. Yes. So we get down to the planet, which again I think they did beautifully. I don't know how much of this was live action and how much of this was volume. But everything worked really beautifully. I loved all of this background. We get a nice little back and forth on trust. Where we're really seeing is how much Obi-Wan does not trust anyone. And again, understandable. And then we meet a friendly-ish mole creature named Freck, who... God, this is just the friendliest little Star Wars alien creature. That's what I love. And really feeling very real. I loved Freck. I loved his little thing. I loved picking up the stormtroopers and creating the problems. And then we'll get to the little checkpoint bit in a bit. But yeah, what did you guys think of that setup? The dealing with the sort of revelations of how much Obi-Wan doesn't trust, and then dealing with our friend Freck. Alyssa?
Yeah, well, Obi-Wan's pessimism and lack of trust is really what kind of got them in that situation, because what's her, I want to call her Ilaria Sand, but what is it from, that's her Game of Thrones character, but that character says that she went there, she was running a little late, and they weren't there anymore, so if they just waited, then they would have been totally fine. So it's kind of Obi-Wan's fault that they got into that situation. But I also want to mention, like, I loved the interplay between the two here too, because my favorite part was how Obi-Wan just kept saying to Leia, "Don't talk, you don't talk, you don't talk," and then she did all of the talking. And he's just like, oh, just kind of going along with it. And as for this Freck character, I don't know. Like, it was a little triggering for me, because that little Empire, symbol on the back of his truck. I think of it as a truck. It's like a pickup truck. So
Yeah.
I thought it was a pickup truck, and I'm thinking of like myself meeting some friendly person on the side of the road, country road, and like, oh, go have a ride, and like seeing Confederate flag and bumper sticker or whatever. That's like, but in this situation, it's, the stakes are obviously really high because they're trying to run from the Empire, and here's like this Empire sympathizer that they're getting on the ride with, and then the stormtroopers are hitching a ride as well. One little nit that I had to pick is that the stormtroopers said, "Well, tell us your story." And he's like, "It's a long story." "Well, it's a long ride," and then they get off like 2 minutes later, so it wasn't really a long ride. But
that's true. But stormtroopers
accomplish...
also not friendly in that sense. So
yeah, but it did accomplish what it needed to accomplish for this, to really raise the tension and the stakes in that scene. So I thought it was good.
Well, and I thought it was also fun there is how quick little Leia was in jumping in with story, and kind of like she was committed to the pretend. I think even more so than Obi-Wan was, who was the one that ended up slipping up there. But yeah, Cor, what did you think of our little initial journey on the planet and off running with Freck?
Well, when they first said his name was Freck, all I could think of was fracking, and mining, and the two and how they're connected. And I was like, did someone just put that in for a joke, like an inside joke for his name?
Quite possible. It is a mining world. I don't remember the name of the planet. I didn't write that down.
I didn't remember either. I thought it was interesting that Obi-Wan is lacking patience, which is supposed to be one of the qualities of a Jedi. And it's actually one of the lessons that Qui-Gon Jinn was teaching him, like in episode 1. He's like, Obi-Wan, be patient. Like we'll get to where we'll get to, and we'll find the answers when we need to find them. Like my Padawan, focus on the Force and be patient, right? And so he's falling into those old sort of, I guess, maybe habits that he had dealt with by becoming a Jedi. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And Leia herself represents hope, like in the grown-up Leia, right? She is the hope for the Empire, and she represents that. So I thought it was interesting that Leia, even as a child, she's open and trusting, and she wants to believe everybody is good.
Mhm.
And hopefully Obi-Wan will be able to get that sort of perspective again by being around her and learn to have faith in humanity, even how terrible things are. And you see that in all the questions he asked Tala. How is there somebody still doing this? How are people still helping the Jedi? How, like, he's just flabbergasted that this is going on. And she tells him, well, there are still good people out there. There's still people risking their lives. This is going to be the beginning of the rebellion. So I liked seeing those two juxtapositions of the characters and their perspectives, and that Leia wasn't presented as being stupid for being trusting. Like, she was young and naive, but she wasn't an idiot.
Right. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
And we see that, like, she doesn't trust Obi-Wan originally, like in episode 2, because she thinks he's with the people who are trying to capture her. Mm-hmm. So we have a bit of a balance there. But
Sure. That's actually an excellent point. No, I really enjoyed a lot of the writing and character stuff that Leia did. There wasn't that kind of back and forth. She's smart, she's dumb, she's smart, she's dumb, so they can do, conflicts, or we can shift the plot around. She really just got to be a nice, consistent character. Yeah, and I loved all of that little stuff.
And she finally said thank you to him. Like 3 episodes in, I'm like, girl, where are your manners? Come on, you're supposed to be brought up in a political climate of.
Well, and we did have that nice little point asking about her mom, and even asking, are you my dad? Are you my real dad? It's like, she knows. Now, I know that they talked about her not being a real Organa, and obviously knowing there must be some adoption there. But this was the first time, again, you guys mentioned, we're talking about the mom. We're talking about her connection and that missing. And I had thought that our current stepmom Organa, or adopted mom Organa, was going to be dead in this series because of I lost my mom when I was a kid. But now, with the way that she's talking about it, I don't think that needs to happen or necessarily will happen. Because now she's admitting that, like, no, I have this connection or whatever. And I thought that was a really kind of sweet moment for them back and forth.
And I liked that we see that Obi-Wan is affected by Padme's death in a pretty significant way. Like, he still misses her. He still thinks about her. He probably feels guilty. He probably, blames himself, like he's blaming himself for everything else that went wrong, when it's like, Anakin is his own person. Your child is their own entity. They can make their own choices. Like, yes, you help them, but you're not responsible for them choosing to do something terrible. So I liked seeing that and that element.
Yeah, and what I actually liked about that exchange is just before that, this is when Obi-Wan slips up and accidentally calls her Leia, and then says, oh, it's because she really reminds me of her mom. Yes. And I look at her and I see her mom. And I think that was truthful. And he was telling the truth. And I love that Leia was smart enough to pick up on that. She was like, oh, did you know my mom? Like, she picked up on that. There was something more to it. And then in last week's episode 2, or in episode 2, there's that comparison to Padme. He doesn't call her out by name, but he's like, oh, you really remind me of somebody. And it's true. Like, when he said that, I was like, oh yeah, they do have a lot of similar qualities. And I love that Obi-Wan, I feel like in the original trilogy, Obi-Wan with Luke was kind of, reminding him of Luke's father, of Anakin. And here I feel like he's more connecting to Leia's mother, Padme. And I absolutely love how they're doing that. And I agree with you, Corey, that I think there is probably some guilt that he's carrying around for that too, that he probably at least partially blames himself for Padme dying of sadness, which So I absolutely have been loving this reconnection with Padme through Leia. It's not. I didn't expect them to take this approach with the Leia character, and I'm really, really enjoying it that they're doing that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, obviously we
And
had. Go ahead.
I was going to say, as bad as his connection is with Anakin, of like, oh, I'm seeing all the bad elements of Anakin in potentially Luke. That's what we're worried about. Like, I love that he's seeing the positive elements of Padme in Leia. And so, like, again, she is this hope. My question is, why does Obi-Wan wish he was the dad? Because he says, I wish I was. And my reading of that was, he's thinking, if I had been the father wouldn't be Anakin. And we wouldn't be in this like potential predicament, right?
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
how I read it.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, it could be.
There's nothing romantic there.
No. I didn't think anything romantic. I just thought more of it. It was like, God, that would be such a simpler answer than no, your father is the Dark Lord of the Sith. You know?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's not
You know
quite the devil, but you know the person that sits right next to the devil? That's him.
Yeah, like you can't really tell your child your father is a horrible, terrible person who's murdered a million people. Like just say, yeah, well, I wish I was your dad, because then that you wouldn't have to deal with all of this. You wouldn't have to have 47 years of counseling in the galaxy.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we've had a lot of strong character work, some good emotional connection, which means we got to interrupt that with a fight, which they did really nicely at the checkpoint. I love this. I love the kind of dirty fighting that Obi-Wan does. I mean, he even grabs Freck and uses him as a shield for a moment, but he's spinning, he's grabbing. It's like, I think they've done a real good of showing someone who used to fight well and hasn't for a while. So everything is kind of cool, but a little messy and a little gun up. And it's choreography that way is tough. And I think that they've handled this really well. And again, I'm going to give this to Ewan McGregor for probably going that extra mile to get his physicality down, because this really does have a great feel of not using the Force and building tension and, pulling this stuff up and hiding from the probe droid and all of that. And then, we get a Wilhelm scream and a guy gets himself cut in half falling into a beam separator. That's that's the ultimate win right there. And of course, Freck shows that he is not a kind Freck. By the way, voiced by Zach Braff, for all of you Scrubs fans.
Yeah, I didn't know that until after the fact. I heard that. Yeah, I didn't recognize his voice at all as I was watching it.
No. I didn't. Yeah, it's one of those you had to see the credits. You're like, where was he? Oh, he had to be the one person we didn't see.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of our little checkpoint fight? And of course, this is when we do meet up with Tala, who is, an Imperial officer helping the rebellion.
Yeah.
Corey, we'll start off with you.
All right. Yes, I did love that it was a little bit dirty. It was a little bit, down to earth, and we weren't using the cool Force. These aren't the droids they're looking for. It's literally grab the blaster as quick as you can and shoot, But I will say I was impressed that Obi-Wan's aim was so good. Like, he may have not been practicing for a while, but he still has it. He still got it. And, that his first comment is just don't shoot the girl. Like, he doesn't even get to don't shoot the girl, because then he shoots the guy that's holding Leia. But I like that we see that his concern is just for Leia. It's like, if I have to take out all of these people, I will do so to get this little girl where she needs to be safely. And I will say, did not expect the Imperial officer to be on our side. That totally floored me. I was like, what? I think because I'm so used to seeing Imperial bad, like the two, right? And we kind of got a hint at that Imperials could be good with Finn's character, but it didn't really go as deep as I guess some of us wanted. And so it was nice to finally have an Imperial character. I mean, she's undercover, right? So, but she did say she trained with them and she joined up for a particular reason. And then when she realized what the Empire really was doing, it was too late, right? It's kind of like, with someone who joined with the Sith, and then they realize, uh-oh, this is not what I thought I was signing up for. The other thing I was picking up on a lot was kind of imagery of, World War I, Holocaust, like checkpoints and that. And also with the tunnels, it was making me think of the Underground Railroad.
Sure,
and the
very much
slave,
so.
Getting slaves across the border. So there's a lot of like historical sort of nods here and there that I appreciated.
Ramona Floyd, love you. Yes, that's why she looks
Mm-hmm.
familiar. Alara Sand from Game of Thrones is the actress who played Tala played also Alara Sand from Game of Thrones, the Viper's wife, which was awesome. Alyssa, what did you think of our little checkpoint encounter here?
Yeah, and I liked too that Obi-Wan was really good with the blaster. It's a little surprising because remember he was like, "Oh, this is so uncivilized," but I guess he did learn to use it, and it would make sense that he wouldn't lose those skills because he's lost is his connection to the Force, and that's why he can't reach out to Qui-Gon. He buried his lightsabers in the sand. He hasn't been practicing the Force. So it makes sense that if he was well trained on a blaster, even if he found it uncivilized, that those skills would not go away. But he, and as we'll see later in this episode, he has no ability to fight with the Force at all. So it would make sense that he would resort to the blaster in this situation. It's not going to help him later in the episode when we get there, but with stormtroopers, it helped him just fine. And I did find the one getting cut in half was a little shocking to me. I was like, whoa, I was not expecting that. And Obi-Wan grabbing Frick and using him as his shield was also unexpected, but he kind of deserved it. Like
oh yeah.
Yeah, he totally turned them into the cops.
I found some strays. I thought you should check them out. Oh, you're all wall frack. You were so cute. We liked you for half a second, even with your terrible.
I stopped liking him as soon as I saw his Empire bumper.
I was gonna say, that's
I don't trust this guy. I don't trust this guy. But I agree with Corey on a couple points. One about I just want to call her Ilaria Sand. What's her character's name? Tala.
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 T-A-L-A.
Yes.
I've in the trailer the shot where they first show her in the Imperial uniform was in the preseason trailer for Obi-Wan. So I was like, oh, look, Ilaria Sand is in this. And when I saw the trailer and I saw her, I just assumed she was actually playing Imperial officer. So when at first I was like, wait, how are they going to get out of this? Like they're now, they just defeated all of these stormtroopers and like 2 seconds later, more coming. And I'm like, oh, they're fucked. How are they getting out of this? And then I was not at all expecting Ilaria Sand Tala to be on Obi-Wan's side. And in fact, she was the contact person that he was sent to find, and he didn't wait long enough for.
Yeah.
But I also agree about the imagery of the Underground Railroad. That is exactly what I thought of too. It's like the Underground Railroad for Force-sensitive kids and Jedi, which I thought was really cool. And I don't know if we want to talk about that part just yet, but
yeah, I was going to say, let's dive into that. And that seems like that would be right at the end of that. So we have a good break to jump back and talk about the Inquisitors and such, who we haven't had a chance to go on with, because we do have some interesting stuff that pops up in that kind of Underground Railroad way station, you might weigh them, or as they refer to it as the path. So yeah, Alyssa, why don't you jump right into that little bit there?
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool how they just like wrote, they're like Quinian was here, like how they were all writing on
Quinlan Bus.
Yeah,
he's
still alive. Yeah.
Yeah, did you guys know who that was? I found out later who it was, but I didn't know who it was.
I remembered the character, the name was familiar, and then I remembered, it was from Clone Wars. because I think that was in the movie. I think it was one of the first ones when they were looking for what's his name, Zero the Hutt's kid or something like that. When they
Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember which episode he was in. I saw another YouTube video where they showed what he looked like. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that guy.
yeah
But apparently he originally was like standing behind Qui-Gon Jinn in the background and Phantom Menace.
yeah
And-
yeah he's one of those. Yeah, he was a background character that people were like, I like the cut of that guy's jib. Let's see more of him. And they're like, oh well,
yeah.
he's a Jedi actually. You know.
Yeah,
So,
no,
yeah.
but I think that it is cool that they are showing that there are still other Jedi alive. Now, while in A New Hope, I think there was implied that all the Jedi were gone, but in the supplemental material, everything that's come out after the Rebels, especially, is showing us that there are very much Jedi still alive during this time period, which I think makes it a lot more interesting to have that there's still Jedi floating around out there. And I thought it was really cool that one was mentioned. I wonder if we'll get to see him or not, if it was just a name drop. But
and
yeah,
he was good, and then he was bad. He went to like the dark side for a bit, and he fell in love with one of the assassins, and then he came back to the light side. So he's a very gray character.
That seems perfect for this era of Star Wars. Yeah. Yeah, no, there were some really interesting things in there. One of which I have to point out. I watch a lot of YouTubes. Justin over at Eckert's Ladder had brought this up, and it really kind of excited me. In fact, I could look up and try and find the book here. The boy last week that we met, his name was Corin. Who cares? But the mom's name was Neja. And there is a character named Corin Horn with a mom named Neja in the extended of, I guess, the legends now of the Star Wars books, a lot of the old novels and such. The image that Obi-Wan sees and kind of goes, is Quinlan Vos, who is a Corellian Jedi, who is also known as I'm sorry, not Quinlan Vos. Sorry, I'm lost my notes here. We got the Corin Horn. There we go. Oh, damn it. Now I can't find my bits of the note.
Quinlan
Anyway,
Vos is who I was just talking.
That's right. Sorry,
Yeah.
Valen Halcyon. It's Valen Halcyon's sign, who's also known as Valen Horn or Hal Horn, Corin's father. So Corin Horn is a Jedi that's connected in with Rogue Squadron and everything like this. So there's possibly weighing, again, this is one of those like fan reaches, but they could be laying some groundwork for the introduction of this character later on, you know, in the Mandalorian era and such like that, in Rogue Squadron. So just some interesting little like tiny character stuff that they dropped off in the middle of this here. But yeah, well, Corey, did you have any thoughts here on our little path, our little way station here before we jump in and talk a bit about the Inquisitors?
I did have a few comments. I wasn't sure if you were actually finished talking because I jumped in and interrupted you with my comment. So was there anything you wanted to add before I jump in?
No, just that there was one other last thing that I was curious about. Only when their eyes are closed can they truly see the way. Now, of course, you say the way, I think Mandalorian.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Which I don't know if they're laying that. The way is also Tao or Tao, which is a lot of the philosophy. The way is a lot of the philosophy that originated the Jedi kind of religion in with Star Wars and stuff. It's the sort of very philosophical approach towards things. So it could be a Jedi thing, but you say the way, I think Mandalorian, and this would be real interesting to connect the Jedi in with the Mandalorian when you have the Darksaber saga coming up next. So again, some fan reaches here may mean nothing, may just mean the moment, may mean when Luke closes his eyes so he can see the path and A New Hope and shoot and kill the Death Star. Some people have said that. I don't know. But yeah, go ahead.
So we mentioned that, you know, the Jedi are supposed to be all gone in the later films. The the first films.
Sure.
Right? But I'm thinking that's what the Imperials would want everyone to believe, right? That's what the propaganda would be. All the Jedi are gone. There is no hope, just give up and stop fighting. That's what they would want them to believe. Ned B, the droid that was helping out them, I'm wondering, is he actually a droid, or is he like a human pretending to be a droid? Like, I don't know, because they had that moment where Leia was trying to talk to him, and so I'm not sure, is that just because we've established that she actually cares for droids and sees them as like a worthy
Sure
identity, and they're not just servants and to be treated like scrap and trash, and we see that throughout her sort of story. So I wasn't sure if Ned B was actually a person in disguise, because we did see him like grab that hammer really tightly, like he was ready to attack someone. But we've also seen droids that have been reconned and reprogrammed being very human-like and caring about humans. So I wasn't sure. That's an open question. I did like Tala's motto of actions speak louder than words. I was like, oh, my mom used to say that all the time. It's like you can, the way to hell is paved with good intentions, but it's what do you do, right? You're shown, who you are is shown by what you do, not by what you say, right? So I like that. And they talk about the tunnels lead to Jabin. And my question is, does this mean that they're going to find the Imperials are going to find this safe house, and they're going to find the tunnels? And are all of the people that are helping out with this underground rescue, are they going to now all be marked, and the Inquisitors are going to be hunting them down? I mean, what's going on? Because we know that the sister finds this tunnel. So
yeah. I think Jabin's a different planet where they're saying the path all of these railroad connections lead to us. So I think that's like the final destination that may be off-world. I didn't get the impression it was on-world here.
This all leads to Canada.
Yeah,
Canada,
that's right.
freedom come.
And the Imperials better stay out of Canada.
Yeah, they better. I'll go after them.
All right. Well, let's, obviously we get a really big kind of moment and reveal, but that, of course, relies on what's been going on over with our little Sith brigade. So let's talk for a moment about our Inquisitors, because we get our first Vader introduction. We get to see Reva's plan coming in of where she wants to go. We get some beautiful Imperial hallways. Look, man, you want to sell Star Wars to me? Big Imperial hallways, those octagonal, like angular doorways and all of that, the big grays. It's just, that screams Star Wars to me. I got to say, I loved all of this stuff. I love the interplay. I love that we got our little kind of political machinations between all of the different Inquisitors and who's trying to be the next person up and where they want to be and what their little work is in organization. I don't have a whole lot really specifically personally to say on all this. I just love the setup. And again, I think that they did some great use of effects, location, and the volume. Everything worked really well for me. I was just like, give me more of this stuff. I don't always like the music, but that's really kind of an aside with me. Alyssa, what did you think of our Imperials, our Inquisitors, and their kind of machinations?
Yeah, it was one of the most enthralling, engaging scenes of somebody just walking for like 5 minutes that I've ever seen. She's just like walking through all of those hallways, and it's the music. It's no Empire's theme from The Empire Strikes Back, but it's the music. I think it worked for that scene really well. She's just like walking through like for 5 minutes, walking and walking, but you're seeing all of these big Imperial halls, and exactly, it felt very, very Star Wars to me, and I actually really loved that. Now, as far as the other Inquisitors go, so we're getting kind of this battle for power to be the next one up. But really, the Grand Inquisitor is not dead because he's in Rebels, which takes place 5 years after this. So he's still alive, unless they're going to say that the Grand Inquisitor from Rebels is a different dude who just happens to be the same species, but that would be strange. So I wonder if almost Vader even knows that the Grand Inquisitor is still alive and that Reva has no chance of becoming the Grand Inquisitor and is manipulating her. I was kind of wondering that too. So I'm wondering what's really going on here, because we know that he can't be dead because he's in a show that takes place 5 years after this. So, so it's almost
excellent point. Yeah.
It's kind of odd to me that they did that fake out, that they have made it like he's dead, but so I'm really curious to see where they're going with that. But it does set up for this interesting power struggle between the remaining Inquisitors, and both trying to one up each other. Oh, I'm gonna go call Darth Vader now. Already spoke to him. They just keep trying to one up each other. I know Darth Vader better than you do.
Stop Sith blocking me.
No. So I find that all really interesting, and I'm really curious to see where they're going with this, with the Grand Inquisitor of it all.
Yeah, no, and that's an excellent point, and we're definitely going to talk some more canon questionable things about that. And I gotta say, you were so right with the look. I was complaining again last week with some of the armor and the way that it looked and moved. And maybe it's just location, because you're right. She looked badass walking through the hangar and then down the hallway. And I don't know if it's just that controlled strut is that's what the armor is made for, to look badass doing that. And it totally does. Ramona's wanting the Reva action figure, and I completely agree.
And everyone moves. She walks in and everyone steps to the side. Even the stormtroopers are bad attitude coming through, step back, right?
Yeah, and I thought Moses just presence in all of this and force, and even when she was playing back and forth with the, oh, you want to take credit? Go right ahead. We all know who's going to be standing by his side when this is all over. It's that was kind of a perfect throw down initially, and then later on she's like, okay, I can back off because I know I'm the one. Yeah, I'm really enjoying what she's bringing to this. Corey, what did you think of our Imperialness?
It was kind of funny. I was laughing a bit because, again, it just made me want to be how old are you? Are you 5? Guys, come on, work together. And then I realized this is an excellent example of one of the weaknesses of the dark side, is that they have this fighting amongst each other, right? Nobody's going to lay down for the other person to sacrifice. No one's going to be a Steve Rogers. They're all going to backstab each other to get to the spot. And then they're going to be backstabbed by the next person, right? So it really showed the different approaches to power and control between the dark side and the light side, right? So I liked that it really showed those differences. I also like that they're using force, force and pull and whatnot to kind of intimidate each other. We saw that, she's almost face plants into the table by the brother, and they're kind of using their powers as well. They obviously use them for torture, but It was interesting to use them as a bullying tactic. That was kind of interesting. I will say I did have one comment about the previous scene in the tunnel that I forgot to mention. But can Leia not read face?
Okay, I don't know about you guys. I lost you on that question.
Yeah, I lost. She's frozen.
She's frozen. The dark side has struck. She does. The Inquisitors do not wish your question to be aired, Corey. She was saying that she did have some internet issues going on. So, okay, hold that thought, and we will jump back into it. Because I think I know where you're going. In which case, that is something that I want to get to it of what I call the time tunnel effect. But let's just get to the big encounter for this, which is, of course, the appearance of Vader and the really canonical breaking, we're just going to say it, fight between him and Vader. Look, personally, there is so much of this that I loved. I loved Ewan. I loved Obi-Wan getting floored by the appearance, the overwhelming evilness of the Force coming down and sort of shaking him, and then the appearance of Vader and all of that. I think we've got Corey back. There we go.
Sorry, I got kicked off.
Wonderful.
Vader's like, no, you're not going to talk about this.
Now, you were going to ask about the Reva Leia encounter towards the end. Is that where you were going with that?
Yeah, I had a question because I was wondering, can Leia not read basic? Because she asks Obi-Wan, what does it say on the wall? And he has to translate for her. Only when the eyes are closed can you see the way. So did she not read basic, or is this another language that the Jedi would have written in? That was my question.
I was assuming it was just a different language that probably isn't basic, but I have no idea because I don't know what basic looks like in Star Wars. I have to say they always have the weird writing stuff, and I have no idea which is what. So
I assumed it was a different language too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then I like that she asks Tala, "Is it scary having to pretend?" And Tala says, well, it's worth it when you can help people. And so we're starting to see like the foundation of who Leia's going to become as a leader. And I could see that she would maybe idolize Tala as a little girl. And, Tala says, like, I have my blaster on the opposite side for a quicker draw. And I'm like, is that a Han Solo reference? And then, so I just really liked Tala. I hope she stays around. I hope she's here for more episodes. I hope she doesn't die.
No, I think we're definitely going to have her for a little bit, the way that everything ends. But we're getting in. Yeah.
And then I was wondering, like, who in their right mind leaves their post and follows a little kid's advice to go help? It's Obi-Wan, but come on.
Well, and that's definitely something I want to get to, our weird little tunneling effect there. But just the Vader of it all.
Oh yes,
our big encounter with Obi-Wan and Vader, and I think really, to me, the joy that you're going to get out of this is directly proportional with how concerned you are with canon, because look. A New Hope is the circle is now complete. When I last saw, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. Okay, which is implying very much that they hadn't run into each other since his formation, since he was the Padawan and is now the master. If we include this really should have been Obi-Wan. Look, no one around to help you out this time, huh? Coming back for the sequel of Ass Whooping Part 2. It really kind of changes things. So putting all of that aside, because it is just really weird.
I actually want to address that because
good. Then let's get into that. Yes, let's talk about canon.
Yeah, because for me, it's that one line that they broke canon, but everything else makes it match up better with episode 3, because episode 3 ends. Obi-Wan sees Anakin burning and assumes rightfully that he died. What else would he think? Then he goes off and isolates in the desert for 20 years. And then he tells Luke in New Hope, oh, he's more man than machine, or he's more machine than man now. How the fuck would he know that? Like, how would he know that unless he saw him at some point? Because he's got his comm buried in a box. When Bail Organa calls him, he has to dig it out of a box. He's out of contact. He's not keeping up with the latest news. So I wouldn't think that he would know about Darth Vader unless he had seen him. And also, I think this is a much more connected rematch to episode 3, because I feel like in episode 4, it's you're just kind of like, oh yeah, Darth, I'm the master, only a master of evil. Blah, blah. He's not really emotional. Whereas here he's like, Anakin, what did you do? Which seems like the more, based off of what happened in episode 3, that seems like it would be his reaction. So I like that they connected it better with those aspects of it. You just have to accept that that one line from A New Hope was written in 1977 before they knew they were going to do all of these TV shows. And in order to do the TV show, you really have to have Obi-Wan confront this, the fact that his trusted friend and his learner, his Padawan, turned to the dark side, because that is never confronted at any other point. Like, you never see him have to face that. And I think that's a great character arc for Obi-Wan. That's a great story for him to have to deal with that. And so if you have to break a little bit of canon in order to have that story, I'm here for it. So I am totally okay with it.
Well, I mean, and I totally have to agree that with any worries of canon, which is where I was going with that statement, again, Ewan brings it. This is the pain, the confusion, the loss, the fear. I mean, I feel that this starts to dwell a little bit too much into almost a Michael Myers fight for a little while, where he's just appearing and disappearing. And, I didn't know about the Sith ability to teleport, but that might play into some other scene later on. Which I thought, in some ways was a bit much. On the other hand, again, kids show, the beautiful red and blue lights in the background and the darkness flashing and moving and lighting each of them up. I mean, that looks so really cool. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, canonically, we got some issues. On the other hand, you're right. There is an emotional kind of loop that needs to kind of be closed or dealt with in this. Corey, what did you think of our encounter here?
I liked it. I mean, I didn't have a problem with Vader just kind of appearing and reappearing, and because I saw it more as Vader is hunting. He's like a cat that's playing with a mouse that's been injured. He knows he can take Obi-Wan. Mm-hmm. Where's the fun in that? He's just he wants to torment him, right? And we saw that with him dragging Obi-Wan through the fire. He could have just snapped his neck and have it over with. But no, he wants to see him suffer. And part of that is psychological torture and physical torture and whatever else he can do. And he knows Obi-Wan better than anybody. Like, he grew up beside Obi-Wan. So he knows how Obi-Wan thinks. He knows that he's probably riddled with guilt about this. He thought the one thing he was told to do, which was raise Anakin, he botched. And then the other thing he was supposed to do, which was kill Anakin, he botched that too, because he thought he'd killed him, but no, he's still alive. So, I mean, I didn't have a problem with Vader not coming in and having like super insane, crazy moves. We might get that in another episode.
Oh, I think it would look wrong
coming down the line.
Yeah, if he's doing like ninja flips around, I think that would look totally wrong. I think part of Vader's character is that terror and slow embodiment. I think is something a lot more effective.
Yeah. One thing though I was wondering about is we have that line where Vader says to Luke, Obi-Wan once thought as you did, when Luke is trying to bring Vader back to the light side, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering if maybe Obi-Wan is going to have, the next fight will be him trying to bring Anakin back to try to rescue him, like a last ditch attempt, and then he'll realize he's too far gone. Like, I can't reach him, but if I survive this, I can reach Luke, and so and then Luke will become his full focus, right? Because we know he said Obi-Wan wants to just do. Is that referencing? Exactly.
Yeah, the Sith don't like you tonight, Corey. The Sith do not like you tonight. Yeah, frozen in carbonite again.
Well, I'll comment on what she was saying because, well, I think that would be a fixing of canon because the Obi-Wan once thought, as you did, was originally meant to refer to the episode 3 era.
Yeah.
And then when they did episode 3, they didn't really show us that. So it didn't really make sense with that line. But this is a chance to actually fix that if they do go in that direction. I was thinking along those same lines. I was wondering if that is what's going to happen. I do think that there needs to be in some sort of a rematch or some sort of other encounter between the two. I can't imagine that's like the only time. That actually reminded me, this whole scene reminded me a lot of when Luke first met Vader in Cloud City. It was a lot of Luke hiding from him, and Vader was clearly the much stronger force in that situation. And Luke had, just started learning from Yoda for like 2 weeks or whatever.
Sure.
And he didn't know what he was doing. So I saw a lot of parallels in that, where Obi-Wan is weak with the Force, hasn't been using it in a while, and he's definitely at a disadvantage. So I saw parallels between that. And then what happens the next time Luke meets Vader is he does try to bring him to the light side. So we may see another parallel there, and that's might be what we see the next time they meet as well.
I'm very sure you're right. This is not the last encounter that the two of them were going to have. Yeah, Corey, you were right in the middle of something before the sis shut you down there.
Sorry. Yeah. The internet just keep losing it here. Sorry. But yeah, I was just saying, as you were mentioning before I popped in, that Obi-Wan's going to potentially try to bring Vader to the light, try to reach Anakin, right? Try to redeem him, and we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see if that happens.
I think that would be an interesting one. Yeah, so like I said, I liked, I think, a lot of the idea of the fight overall. There's a few of the things that, while all of this was emotional, I think everyone sort of painted themselves into a corner. And this deals both with this fight and our sort of time tunnel issue that we get with the escape of Leia, or attempted to escape of Leia, and Reva's sort of discovery. Because to me, and I've played a lot of Star Wars video games, so they played a lot of Force stuff. I really think there was kind of an underuse of the Force here, of the anger of Vader. I mean, at one point we do finally get he does the Force choke, and he lights the stuff on fire, and he drags them through, and I'm like, okay, now this is what I would expect, the kind of anger. But then he blows out the fire with a Force push. The stormtroopers that show up, then he's like, go bring him to me. Now, you can reach out and drag his butt back to you with the Force, but okay, send in the stormtroopers. Tala blows up, reignites the crystals, and then Vader just watches them go and rescue Obi-Wan there. Like, you could pick him up, you could blow out the fire again, You're a freaking Dark Lord of the Sith, and you finally have what you want right in front of you. That give up at the end really kind of undercut stuff for me. And again, it's a nitpicky bit, but it kind of runs into the same thing that we got so we could have the Leia moment, because in the tunnel, when Vader first shows up, it's like, get her to the ship and I'll lead them away. And then we have Reva's whole little bit inside, and then she finally discovers things. In the middle of that, Leia's like, Tala, no, go save Obi-Wan. I'll go. Now, look, there may be tons of tunnels, but my impression was this was kind of a direct route. So, I don't know how Tala got either past Reva or a different exit, and then how Reva finds a way to get in front of Leia when she's been running to the end the whole time, which, again, if we have Sith teleport abilities, that would explain it. But it's just, and again, I know it's nitpicky, but it is one of those things where it's just at the end, like, okay, I see you've got this whole big setup here, but then you just like, well, do whatever you got to do to make the next step happen. We'll just have Vader stare at him, and then Reva will just be at the end, because she knows where she's going, and she can force jump or do whatever or take a faster route. So
Yeah.
and
And
Yeah.
and that Tala could just shoot at Darth and all the people there and rescue Obi-Wan that way. I'm like, couldn't Darth just like pick her up and go?
well,
Yeah, it's the only way I can rationalize it is he must have let Obi-Wan go because he just wants to fuck with him more and like let him think that he's free and then capture him later, because it's the only thing I could think of. Otherwise, it makes no sense at all. Like,
and he's done that before, right? Because remember, Leia had that line about like, they let us go. It's the only explanation. I was like, no, I'm a great pilot, right? So there's precedence for this.
Could be. I mean, there might be a reason that otherwise it makes no sense, because like Tala shoots the thing and creates the big flame, and Darth Vader was like, oh, well, fire. Can't do anything about that. So I would have used the Force, but there's fire. So sorry. I can't do anything. So if he let him go for some reason, that would make sense. I kind of doubt that's where they're going with it. I would feel better if that's where they were, but yeah, otherwise it's just so that the show can happen, so that we can have 3 more episodes, and it's very contrived.
And I think this was the issue to me with dealing with the canon and this encounter with Obi-Wan and Vader, is because re-separating them, and then for some reason Vader at some point not hunting him down, especially at this point, really messes things up for me. I mean, it just makes things a little more messy than they needed to. If you didn't have to necessarily involve, perhaps you could have had Vader chasing a rumor of Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan trying to stay out of it, before they actually kind of encounter, and a sort of hit and miss kind of thing, where you could have some of these impacts and emotional issues without running into some of these either canon breaking or just, well, we got to separate them so they get away. They get away is how they end up this episode, with just a little write-in. Now there was one thing that I did want to get you guys' opinion on, and it's the way that I've been watching Reva work and considering her passionate pursuit of Obi-Wan. They've been setting it up like she blames Obi-Wan for, what happened to her. But I'm wondering if maybe she's playing a real Sith long game. And she's not after Obi-Wan. She's after Vader. And she's using Obi-Wan to get close to Vader. Because again, Anakin's the one that betrayed them. Anakin's the one that came and took out the temple. Anakin became the Lord of the Sith and turned to the dark side and everything. And I'm wondering if there is some, again, not that she's necessarily a dark hero, just that her villainy may not have anything to do with Obi-Wan so much as just using him to get to Vader.
I've heard that theory, and I think that it is just as likely as the other. I think they're both possible. On the one hand, that she really is just trying to get revenge on Obi-Wan because she blames him for maybe abandoning them. I don't know if you guys talked about this last week, but there's a lot of talk about the fact that she probably was one of the younglings that we see at the beginning of the first episode.
Very much. I think she was that first one we see. Yeah.
So that maybe she blames Obi-Wan for abandoning her, like, because the Grand Inquisitor says, well, she ends up in the streets or whatever, and that's where they find her, and she probably lived a pretty shitty life, and Obi-Wan was nowhere to be found, and Obi-Wan wasn't out helping the younglings, so maybe she could blame him for that. But I am actually more intrigued by the other possibility, that she could be playing the long con and going after Vader because she blames Anakin, which would make a lot of sense for her to blame Anakin. And then maybe, like Tala, she is doing a certain amount of pretending just to get to Vader eventually. So I think that would be very intriguing. Either way, not to spoil things, if you've seen Rebels, she's not in it, but the fifth brother is in it. So it's seeming like she's probably not going to come on top here with whatever her goal is. But I think either possibility is is possible, but I'm more intrigued by what you're talking about there with her going after Vader. That would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's smart. I mean, I have a note here. I said third sister is a bit of a Sherlock Holmes. She's relentless. She clearly has a chip on her shoulder. And I liked watching how, she goes into a place and she scans everything and she's picking up clues that other of the group is just walking by. The Inquisitors aren't, picking up on. So like the brother isn't the smartest or brightest light bulb in the unit, but she's picking up on these things and he's just using it for his own betterment, right? But
yeah, and he's also not a very dedicated one, because what was it at the end when they're like, they escaped, they had help, and he's like, oh, now we'll never find them, and just sort of flops
yeah.
up. I'm like,
it's like, really?
Wow, give
really?
up much, dude? You're just, wow, that's it. That's okay. Now they're gone. All right.
No ambition.
You can see why you're not going to be the next first, Grand Inquisitor.
Yeah.
The other one that I was curious that I wanted to get you guys, again, this is really kind of more of an opinion idea of something that I wish they had dealt with a little bit more into the show. We touched on last week when the Inquisitor was hunting the Jedi. And I love the idea of it's easy to hunt a Jedi because you just cause problems and they have to come. It's an itch they have to scratch, which, look, totally sounds cool. And I love it. I loved it last week. I love it now. But in any like 2-second thought about it, how is that helpful for the Empire? How is well, you know how you find a Jedi, you do something good guys hate. Because that brings out the good guys. Because we're not the good guys. They are. And then we kill them. It's terrorizing, but it's not good propaganda. And I would really have loved more of a philosophical difference between the Sith and the Jedi brought in. Where it could be centralized order versus chaotic democracy. The Jedi help the weak and it just creates confusion and waste resources, where we focus on the strong, a clear, defined, peaceful. Even Anakin has always talked that he wants to bring peace to the galaxy. He just saw it as, look, you just got to make people do the right thing.
Just hit them hard enough and they'll agree with you.
And there was some time with this when we had a little Frex thing and he talks about, hey, nothing wrong with the Empire. A little bit of order is great. But I would love to have a little bit of this difference where you don't just have to show that Vader is evil, that he walks in and just randomly starts force choking and killing people around him. That's evil. But what is the philosophy behind it? What's the drive? And I know this is the old person probably in me talking. 8-year-olds probably don't give a crap about this, which is why it's not in here.
People respond to fear.
Well, it's not in the original films either, though.
True.
I think they're staying consistent. And I honestly don't have a problem with it. I didn't get to talk about this before, but I actually really loved Vader's entrance where he started just randomly force choking people, because it just brought me back to the first time that I saw him when he was a little kid, and the first time when I was a little kid, and the first time that I saw him in Empire Strikes Back, and he just force chokes the hell out of any admiral who makes the slightest little mistake. I mean, that is Vader to me. That he is just angry, he's just hateful, and that's what turned him to the dark side. So that all tracks for me.
Right on.
So I don't necessarily, since we never have really seen that in Star Wars, so I don't really need to see it introduced here. So I'm okay with not having that.
No, it's streaming. We must fill character time. No. That's totally good, because everybody gets sort of something out of it. And that's just one of those kind of ideas that sort of popped in my head there. Corey, any thoughts on that before we start wrapping things up?
On what specifically?
Philosophical arguments in the midst of Star Wars between Sith and Jedi. No, I mean, obviously this wasn't something that you needed.
I mean, yeah, I think it's the sort of same approach that we were seeing in like World War II, right? Of like fear is a form of power, right? If they fear you enough, they will follow, right?
Sure.
Not a lot of people are going to stand up if you're like, the next person who disagrees with this gets a bullet in the head. Anybody disagree? I mean, this is why they killed off all the higher educated individuals in the concentration camps right away. It was like, does anybody have a doctorate? Anybody a medical person? Anybody like dead? Because then the people who could think, who were inclined to think outside of the box and look at the morality of the situation, were out of the picture, right? And then it just became survival and threat. So I think that the dark side, is focused on control and power, and one of the easiest ways to get that, not the smartest way, but the easiest way is through fear, right?
Cool.
And we see that with Anakin and Padme's discussion, right, of what is negotiations with the lightsaber, or like what was the exact quote, like heated debates, or I don't know exactly.
Aggressive negotiation is, I think, the term they use.
Negotiations with a lightsaber, right? So like Anakin's always been, if people don't agree with me, we'll make them agree, right? His way to do things is force. And I don't know if that's a reflection of growing up as a slave, where he probably was treated and they used, threat and force to get him to do things.
Right on.
Good leaders lead by example. Bad leaders or evil leaders just, punch their way to the goal and take out whoever's in the way,
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we wrap things up, real quick questions. Anything that you guys are expecting to see, wanting to see, hoping that you see? We only got 3 episodes left. We're halfway through the season, so we're moving into wrap-up mode pretty soon. Anything in particular that you were hoping to see, expecting to see, wanting to see before this show wraps up? Alyssa, what about you?
I think we have to see Qui-Gon. At the very least, we got to hear his voice, but I think it would be better if we saw him.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's basically Chekhov's Force Ghost, because they've really set up for that payoff. They even showed in the little previously on thing that they did before the first episode, where they were showing clips of the prequels. They went out of their way to show that scene of Yoda telling Obi-Wan about conversing with Qui-Gon, and then we see Obi-Wan continuing to try to converse with Qui-Gon. So I think Obi-Wan's got to go through whatever character arc he needs to get through, whatever learning and growth he's meant to do in this series. And on the other end of that, he's got to have a conversation with Qui-Gon. And we do know that he becomes a Force ghost. And if you guys I don't know if you guys watched Rebels, but the season 6 3-part finale, which I thought was phenomenal, was all about Yoda learning about how to be a Force ghost. We will just kind of pretend that Anakin wasn't an Endor at the end, because that doesn't make any sense, because how did he learn to be a Force ghost? But putting that aside, Obi-Wan we know he has to learn how to be a Force ghost, and Qui-Gon is the key to that. So I think where we have to be heading is Obi-Wan getting to that point, having the confidence in the Force again, and being able to use the Force again, and getting to the point where he can converse with Qui-Gon. So we've got to see some Liam Neeson by the end of this. We absolutely have to. Like, I will think that it wasn't very good if we don't, honestly, because everything seems to be leading to that.
Yes, he does bring a particular set of skills.
He does.
That Obi-Wan's going to need. Corey, what about you? Anything that you're hoping, wanting, or expecting to see with this series before we wrap things, before it wraps up, and then we wrap up?
Oh, I mean, I'm just reiterating what's been said here, that we have to see Qui-Gon Jinn, but I'm hoping that we get some closure with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn, because I feel like Obi-Wan was left with so much to deal with at a young age, and he lost his mentor. And so I'm hoping Qui-Gon can speak to that and, be like, you've done the best you could with what you had, Obi-Wan. I'm proud of you. Like, I couldn't have picked a better Padawan, because if you know anything about Obi-Wan's story, he wasn't the first choice that Qui-Gon picked for a Padawan, and he wasn't even like the third choice. He was he ended up being Qui-Gon's Padawan kind of through accident, and in the books at least, Obi-Wan isn't really, he is always trying to live up to that, like being good enough, and
He's the
so
bad
it would
news
be nice to have
of
that.
Padawans. Yeah.
Pardon?
He's the bad news bears
Yeah.
of Padawans.
Yeah, so it'd be nice to see that. I'd like to see a little bit more development for Leia's character. Maybe her learning a bit more about the Force, working on that sort of foundation. One thing I liked is that Leia says, bring him back to Tala when she asks Tala to go help Obi-Wan.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what Leia says to Han about Ben. She says, bring our son back, bring him back. So I thought that was interesting that Leia
That
is consistent,
Yeah. And I could
didn't
believe
even-
that would
And
be
we-
intentionally done. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we see that through Luke as well, right? He's like, there's good in him still. I can feel it. I can bring him back, which is Padme. So we have this like heritage of hope and rescue through the family line, which I love seeing that.
Yeah, I'm really curious how they're going to end up wrapping these up in, I think, what would be a satisfying way. And I'm actually rather confident that they will. I'm just really curious what the pathway that they're going to do to leave this up, that we're going to feel this is going to bridge properly going forward, because there's no intention for another season of this. This is supposed to be a singular type of event. So if they're going to tell this, I do have to say, whatever the ups and downs that I have, I am really curious how they're going to have Vader kind of like give up on his pursuit of Obi-Wan for now, how they're going to twist this, what's going to happen with Reva. Obviously Leia is captured, so there's going to have to be another escape. And you're right, there has to be that discussion with Qui-Gon. And Silva, man, hitting a really important question. Be interesting to see if Qui-Gon still believes in Anakin. That's going to be an interesting conversation, because there will have to be, Master, you said he would be, I mean, that would be kind of a big thing. So I'm actually with that, I'm even more looking forward to seeing that little scene.
I don't know if we'll get that conversation or not. Like, I mean, I could see a possibility where where he just connects with Qui-Gon, and maybe Qui-Gon gives him the proud father speech, and then the season is over. Like, I would love to see that too, but I wouldn't count on definitely seeing that, but I hope we do.
Well, it depends on if they do it, because I mean, I would think that they would have the Qui-Gon connection be at his lowest point before he comes back for the third act redemption bit, whether it be attempting to save Vader and failing then, and then just taking Leia and moving on, or whatever that arc is going to be. And I don't think they're gonna have the 15-minute like, okay, look, I got all these questions. Where did you leave your passcodes? I've got a box I've been trying to open for 15 years, I don't think they're going to get into all of those type of questions, All right, now, chapter 14. There was,
You didn't read the right Jedi handbook. You totally missed chapter 12.
It's interesting though that you see that Qui-Gon Jinn encounter happening then before the third act, because I was thinking all along that this is going to be, because he's been trying so hard to get to him and he's just not connected to the Force yet. So he's going to have to overcome something. This is going to be at the end. So I'm picturing it as one of the last scenes of the show will be when Qui-Gon comes back, because after he's gone through whatever he needs to go through to have that character growth and get over whatever hump he's going to get over, that's when Qui-Gon is finally going to respond. That's how I'm looking at it. But.
And I can totally see that happening too. I can totally see that, because then you would even just have the Obi-Wan Master, and you could even end it right there without having any further conversation.
No. I have questions. I mean, I will throw a hissy fit if that happens. I've watched this entire thing. You waited for how many years? And you just cut it off. I'm writing very angry worded letters to the company.
Obi-Wan, please leave a message after the beep. No! Force ghost voicemail. All right.
It's like, good joke we played on you, haha. And then Yoda comes in. It's like, Yoda, I swear.
Yeah, that's it. It ends the way the honeymooners does. That's awesome. All right. Well,
I do have a few questions. So we know Obi-Wan goes into hiding. So how can he go into hiding for like the next movies, A New Hope and etc. etc.? You know, how can he get away from Darth Vader? That's my question. Like, how are they going to solve that problem? I'm hoping. I want to see Obi-Wan get his hope back. He needs to get his hope back so that he can then be the hope for the next generation of Jedi that are coming. And then I think I remember hearing like a line or someone saying something similar to this, that just because someone is lost doesn't mean they're past hope. So like just because Vader is lost doesn't mean he's lost forever, right?
Sure.
But we don't see that rescue until Luke comes along. And I wonder if Luke is able to rescue Darth Vader or Anakin because he's willing to give his life at some point. Like he's like, I'm going to just die trying to save my dad. Whereas Obi-Wan, I don't think he would be able to do that because he has Leia and he has to get her safely. I don't know. That's
he does have another mission on that. That's true.
Yeah.
Which is also
all right.
Luke,
Well,
right?
any final thoughts? And then, why don't you throw in final thoughts and then let people know where they can find you? Alyssa, you've been rather busy. Some lots of reviews going on with you.
Yeah, I actually just want to add real quick to what Corey said, because the thing about how are they going to explain how they don't ever find Obi-Wan? I think that's just a plot hole that has always existed that is going to be even amplified even more by this. I saw a meme once that was like Vader talking to, I forget who he was talking to, like one of his Imperial officers or whatever. And they were like, oh, we found somebody named Ben Kenobi living on Tatooine. And Vader's like, you mean he didn't change his last name and he went to the planet where we first met that I grew up on? Nah, he would never be that stupid. So it kind of seems like it would be really easy to find him, especially now after they've encountered each other. So I don't know how that's going to be. So I think it's just going to be a plot hole that we're just going to have to overlook, as it always has been. But
Andy keeps telling everyone, I'm Ben now. Ben Kenobi.
No, not Obi-Wan. Ben Kenobi. No, different. I'm his brother. He's dead.
Right.
No, I'm
not
the brother.
Kenobi. It's an accent thing. We're from different parts of Tall.
Anyways, I had to throw that in there.
I mean, unless he can use the Force to like cloak his identity. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if they're even.
I will teach you how to cloak your identity.
Yeah, that's the next.
My young Padawan.
Yeah, that's what Qui-Gon's gonna say.
But it will aid you tremendously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Alyssa, what are you doing? Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me over at Alyssa Jean's Reviews. I am doing my own weekly reviews of Obi-Wan. You should check out my episode 3 review. I said a lot of the same things I ended up saying here, but there's differences. And I also did a review for episodes 1 and 2, and I will be doing that weekly. So come hear my thoughts on Obi-Wan. And if you're a Star Trek fan, I'm doing Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It's a great time to be a nerd because I feel like Obi-Wan is really the first Star Wars show that's really feeling like capturing the essence of Star Wars. And then Strange New Worlds is doing that for Star Trek. And they're both coming on one day apart, and I'm loving it. So, but I'm reviewing both shows every week. So come join me over on Alyssa Jean's Reviews.
Yes, and I will watch Anson Mount do almost anything. It's Bohannon in space, folks. For any old Anson Mount fans, you should definitely check it out if you haven't. Corey, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on YouTube. I do have a channel called Soothing Scriptures, or you can just search at Biblical Bliss. I'm also an author, so you can find me on my webpage, Literature with Charm, or you can find me on Facebook and whatnot as CL Shoemaker. So with that, and I am so glad we had James Earl Jones doing the voice. We're just so blessed to have him still to
Oh,
do
yeah.
more Star Wars stuff. So that's great.
Indeed. And of course, I'm D. You're watching my channel. We're, of course, doing our weekly reviews of Obi-Wan Kenobi. We'll be doing Westworld when it starts at the end of the month. We'll not be doing regular weekly reviews of Ms. Marvel just because I can't do 2 shows at once. My wife only gives me so much time. I'm just a very busy guy, but I'm really, if I'm going to do anything, I want to talk about Obi-Wan here. So you're going to catch us every week for this. Look forward for Westworld. And hey, I guess in a couple of weeks, I'll finally be able to see the Doctor Strange. So I'm really excited about that. June 22nd on Disney. So woohoo. Anyway, thank you for everyone joining us in the chat. We have Ramona Floyd, Silver Surfer, Envy jumped in a little bit earlier. I saw you, Envy Warren, right there. Eric Scott in here all the time. Bill Casey, always good seeing you. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us live. Thank you for joining us in the archives. Look, we all have to do it. We are legally required by YouTube to ask you to subscribe, to ask you to hit the like button, to ask you to hit the notifications. They make us do it. Honestly, it's just how you get to, it's how you don't miss any of the new reviews. They'll drop right into your feed. So go ahead, do that if you want to see more. Otherwise, we will see you all next week. Thanks so much for joining us. Y'all take care now, and may the force